Hello, everybody. It's your girl Weebo Jones coming at you on this fine Sunday evening. I know most of you are probably doing something better with your days off. But we are here, we are ready, and we are going to debate tonight immigration. I have with me the Liberal Sanity Project and the Great White Yeti. We will be here for an hour. So give me your questions in the live chat. I will compile them. I'll ask them when things start to get a little bit slow. Moderators, if you're listening, remind the chat every once in a while that we do take questions and that I will be keeping track and such and just compiling things when necessary. So without further ado, if you guys want to begin, I don't know, the concept, the topic is immigration. Whoever wants to pose the question first or an issue first, by all means.
Which would you prefer, sir?
Well, I'll let you open since this is your
All
topic.
Right. Yeah, good deal. So I'm actually quite glad we can talk about this issue. I was referred here by a mutual viewer of ours by the name of Jamie Whisper, who said he would appreciate us doing this. So let's both not let him down. Thank you for showing up, and thank you, Weebo, for hosting. So my contention is that Americans benefit greatly from immigration. That because open immigration helps us do better economically. And to turn our back on immigration is to be us turning our backs on prosperity for Americans. And to close our doors to people coming here is to betray the spirit of what makes this country great. Immigration makes us better off, basically.
That's your opening?
Yeah, that's what I got for you, sir. I mean, it's not like I prepared a soliloquy. It's just
all right.
My contention is immigration is good. What have you got?
Well, what you had sent to me was that you were talking about breaking down the system of white supremacy by having immigrants that were non-white specifically coming into the nation and not letting in immigrants from South Africa who would be seeking asylum that were white, specifically because they were white and they would contribute to the system of white supremacy in America if they came.
I don't suppose if I told you that was a troll message, you would continue doing this?
Well, that was the message that you had sent me. That was kind of the premise I was coming in.
I got you.
Okay. Can I interject just real quick here?
Yes,
Mr. Misanthropic asked a question, and I think it's kind of relevant to the topic. Is this on illegal immigration or immigration as a whole?
I would think it's migration as a whole, but we might end up touching on illegal immigration. I assume you're going to bring it up, right, sir?
Well, yeah, between illegal immigration and legal immigration, sure, there's a difference, absolutely.
Okay, so I contend that immigration is good for the economy. Should we get into it on that basis?
Yeah, you can go from there, sure.
Okay, so let me read something real quick. Immigrants' children, the second generation, are among the strongest economic and fiscal contributors in the population. Estimates of the long-run fiscal impacts of immigrants and their descendants would likely be more positive if their role in sustaining labor force growth and contributing to innovation and entrepreneurial activity were taken into account. So what I had just read to you was a direct quote from the National Academy of Sciences. There was a study called The Economic and Fiscal Consequences of Immigration, which in so many words states that immigration contributes strongly to economic and fiscal well-being in this country.
When was the study?
Hang on.
Because it's referring to second-generation immigrants, so I'm curious to know when the study that you cited actually took place.
Give me 1 second. 2016, September of 2016.
All right. So we would be talking about people that would be second-generation immigrants that are already here in America. So
sure.
When would their original ancestor have came here?
Probably in the 80s or 90s.
80s or 90s. So they're second generation. So you're talking about babies being producers. No, that doesn't make sense at all. No, that study you're referring to is talking about people who immigrated here in like the year 1900 or
1900.
1930, and they've had 2 generations of offspring since then. that are actually
Okay.
contributing to society today that are like 40 years old, 50
You
years
realize
old.
second generation just means the children of immigrants, right?
Well, what I'm saying, okay, so then we're talking about people who came here in the 60s. I mean, what?
Or
They're not
80s or
talking about
90s.
they're not talking about like 18-year-olds that are contributing in society now, because let's face it, most 18-year-olds have minimum wage jobs or in school. So they're not
Okay, and
contributing to
what is it?
society at
What do you
all.
mean that? Okay, so what do you mean by that doesn't contribute at all? If they got a minimum wage job, they're contributing whatever their job pays. They're given for a certain wage, and what they spend it increases the demand in a consumer based economy. How are they
So
not
you have
contributing?
unemployment in this country now and you have these minimum wage jobs, and what are you proposing? That these immigrants are all going to come here and fill these minimum wage jobs? How many
I'm
minimum wage jobs do you think there are to go around? I mean,
I wouldn't
you're
know. What
drawing
I'm
from a well
proposing
of
is
infinite jobs here. I mean, that's what you're trying to do right now. There's no infinite job well that you can draw from.
what I'm proposing is precisely what the National Academy of Sciences says, which is that second generation immigrants are among the strongest economic and fiscal contributors of population. That doesn't sound like minimum wage jobs to me. That sounds like high skill, high income jobs.
I'd just like to interject here with a point from, again, Mr. Misanthropic, who says that if the children of immigrants were born in the US, then they're US citizens, not immigrants. Does that contribute to this study um, in terms of what the outcome is?
That's a good question,
No,
because we're not even talking about
it's
immigrants at this point. You're right.
sure we're talking about the after effects of their immigration, but if I need to go further, I do have secondary studies that can talk about direct impacts, fiscal impacts of
Well, how
immigration.
many of these immigrants are growing up with a household that's speaking fluent English? I mean,
I could
if we're going to talk about ones that are coming here today, you know, how many of these guys are coming in from Mexico that are speaking fluent English? Do you think their children are going to grow up and be some kind of great wonders in society economically when they can barely even communicate? I mean, their
Yes, I
parent,
do, because I
really.
just read you
So,
data that stated they do.
so you read one
I
study.
literally
You read one study, and who is this study? I mean, you
the
have to
National
reference more than
Academy of
one source.
Sciences. Yes, I
Okay.
do. That's why I can give you the Forbes Insight study, which I'll send you as
Oh my.
well. Which is Forbes Insight no good?
So we're just no. What you're doing here is ignoring reality. I mean, you're calling yourself liberal sanity,
It's
but
a
then
study. How am I ignoring
when I
reality?
pose a real question to you, you're referencing a study instead of answering a real question.
Okay,
If
your question.
how many of these immigrants don't even speak English when they come here? And if you're thinking that their children are just going to magically learn English and be able to adapt to our culture, you're ridiculous. And their offspring, come on now.
Okay, so do you have anything to refute the study I gave you earlier?
I'm asking you a question with reality.
Okay, what is your
Refute your
question?
study. I just
What
asked you, how do you
What is your
plan on these
question?
people adapting so quickly? They just magically all adapt, right?
Yes, they do. If they want a
Yes.
job here, if they want to live here, they adapt. Do
Where's
you
the
think they just?
sanity here?
I can't help you with that. If you can't see something pretty obvious, I'll send you the sources afterwards. But I have an amalgam of studies that basically say the same thing. Immigrants coming into this country is a good thing. Economically, it helps this country. This isn't hard to figure out. Even low wage and low skill immigrants end up lowering the cost of labor. They lower the cost of labor so much that
So people
businesses can
make less
expand.
money, right? When you lower the cost of labor, that means people don't make as much money. You understand that, right? You
Barely.
drive down
Economics.
what a person's wage is worth. When you have a supply and demand here, if you have more people to fill jobs, yes, you're going to drive down the cost of labor. That's right. So the people who live here already aren't going to be making as much anymore because now there's more people competing for their job. So now
That's capitalism, my friend. Do you want
you
protectionist trade policies?
you're talking about trying to bring in more people to work. Well,
That's capitalism.
that's supply and
That's
demand.
it growing the
You want
supply.
to
You're
grow
right.
the supply of employees so that we can drive down the cost of labor, so that people
Right, which
make
also
less,
allows businesses to invest in other places and allows native born workers to fill complementary jobs.
so that eventually we can be Mexico and making $7 a day working in a factory.
If you
Hmm.
make $7 a day working in a factory, you fucked up your life, not the immigrants.
Well, if you want to flood the job market and have more employees, than jobs, then that's what you're going to do. Like you said it yourself. You're driving down the cost of labor. You said it yourself.
Right. I'm telling you that this is an after effect of immigration. Nobody's proposing we flood the job market with an unlimited amount of immigrants. All right. The sanity in my name means let's be rational here. You only need so many. You need immigrants to replace the supply of labor. You got an aging labor force, right? That is not replaced by natural birth. So you have it's good for the economy. I mean, I don't know any other ways to tell you.
When you have less people, you'll drive up the cost of labor, and people won't have to fucking work so many shitty jobs to be able to afford to pay their bills anymore. That's what
You're
happens.
a product of a Western education. What kind of shitty job do you have to work?
Completely the opposite here now.
So this is okay.
When the supply goes down, then the demand's going to go up. They need more people. If there's, oh my gosh, you just said it yourself. You're driving down the cost of labor by bringing more people in. Well, if you're not bringing in more people, then the cost of labor is going to go up.
Okay.
That means that your lifestyle is going to be able to be better because your dollar is going to fucking go further.
Okay, well, if you're so interested in protecting the low skill laborers, why don't you raise the minimum wage?
Oh, the $15 minimum wage? Is that what you're talking about?
Why don't you support a $15 minimum wage?
Well, now you're being ridiculous. Then the cost of goods is going to go up. Because
okay, so there's no winning with you. Either the cost of goods go down because labor is cheap, or the cost of goods go up because labor is expensive. What difference does it make to you?
No, you're trying to make a false argument with me here on the cost of labor going up. Is what you're doing. You're making an argument for the cost of labor going down, and I'm saying that if you're going to drive down the cost of labor, then what you're going to do is make the middle class suffer. You're going to have the middle class living in ghetto housing essentially because they're not getting paid as much anymore. It's not going to affect people that have six-figure incomes. It's going to affect the middle class, which is the majority of America.
By low-income labor.
Well, what do you think the middle class is?
I think the middle class is going to grow because the cost of goods is cheaper because labor costs are down. That is what lower labor cost does. It increases the standards of living for people.
Anything at manufacturing or lower as far as jobs is going to be middle class.
Okay, we don't have manufacturing jobs to begin with. This is old economy work. So again, this is what I mean, can I fucking make a point before you interrupt me again?
I don't know.
Please?
You've been trying to make points, but then
you interrupt me. So can I make up a point?
Go ahead and make your point. Jesus.
Okay, as a Western populace gets more educated, the percentage of people who take low wage jobs decreases because they're so qualified they don't tend to work these kinds of jobs. So immigrants are good in that they fill a need for laborers in this particular sector. Do you understand that?
You're making the argument for they do the jobs that we don't want to do. That's what you're saying essentially.
Yes.
And you don't think people will work those jobs. And we have to bring in all these other people. Would I work that job personally? No, I wouldn't, but I have options.
Okay, and everybody else is going to think they have options.
I'm not an 18-year-old student who has no skills or experience that's just looking for a job.
18-year-old students aren't going to work fields in California.
Well, ones that didn't go to college that aren't students, just
which is how many? How many how many
people are you going? Do you think all of them go to college?
No, I don't think all of them go to college, but I think we have the most experienced, most educated workforce in the history of this country. So I think it's stupid to think that we're still living in an old economy, agrarian job kind of workforce. People don't work these kinds of jobs anymore. They don't want to. Like you said, they have options.
So what, are they going to just go obsolete then? I mean, are we going to make that argument next? I mean, if you're talking about jobs these are jobs, you're saying these are jobs that Americans don't want to work. Why don't Americans want to work these jobs?
I already explained it, because they're educated.
Because they're educated. So what kind of jobs? We're talking field jobs. What else?
Sure. Field jobs, any number of manufacturing jobs, basically the lowest wage jobs possible. Labor.
Manufacturing is not a low wage job.
Oh, physical labor jobs. How's that?
Any physical labor jobs. So unless you're sitting in an office with the air conditioning, then you don't think Americans are willing to do it?
Yes.
Again, you call yourself the liberal sanity project. How old are you?
All I'm doing.
It doesn't sound like you've been in the workforce very long at all, honestly.
How old I has nothing to do with anything. The only reason
I
you're
think
about to
your
hurl
lack of
experience is because you're losing the debate.
No, I think your lack
That's
of
cute.
experience in the workforce is really reflecting on what you're saying right now. Americans
All
don't
right.
want to work jobs unless they're in a cushy office getting their air conditioning. How
And you
weak do
proved it
you think
yourself.
people actually
And
are?
about as weak as you, because I asked you the same question. Would you work these jobs? And your answer was no.
Oh, I'll work a manual labor job. You're
Okay.
trying to
Well,
make
there
a
you
false
go.
argument again. You're trying to say, well, you work these shit jobs, and then you're saying, well, you work a manual labor job. Yes, I'll work a manual labor job.
Okay. So, is there anything you could say to refute the study I just read to you?
I thought I already did, but in your eyes,
Okay.
apparently not. Again, liberal
No, not
sanity. I'm
really.
sorry. I'm not sane
Um,
enough.
Gentlemen,
I
can I
know that
interject
homonyms are
here?
cute.
Can I
Please do.
interject here just a little bit? One, thank you, Couch Potato, 1999. Here you go, Weebo, for the super chat. Second thing, we've seen to kind of get into this lull of the labor and jobs in the United States with regards to immigrants, and I just wanted to pose a question. So, how do I phrase this? If the issue is that um, immigrants are the ones taking jobs away from hardworking Americans, and that is adjusting the economy. What is the how do I phrase this? What is the stipulation with regards to, say, mechanical tools or automation taking jobs away from Americans as well? Because that is also a concern. I know this is kind of detracting, but we are talking about labor, so it's kind of
Who is this
a factor.
question directed to?
Either.
You want to take this one, sir?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of detracting a little, honestly. I mean, tech taking over manual labor jobs, it's bound to happen. I mean, people are going to have to adapt or die essentially at that point.
Yeah, which is why I was wondering.
Which is
if
here
the
you go.
issue
If you want to
is-
make the comparison with the immigration, I mean, are you proposing that people are adapt or die because we're going to flood the market with employees?
wouldn't the
I mean, is that the comparison?
Well, no, I'm just wondering if it's an issue of, oh, these things are taking our jobs away, then doesn't automation of labor also contribute to that, and wouldn't that also be a further problem, I feel like, especially in a
Yes.
capitalist society?
Okay, then
Yes.
yes.
So a lot of people conflate NAFTA with a bill that winds up killing manufacturing. They thought the same with the Pacific Trans Partnership, whatever that shit was. I can't remember what it. But the point is, these are old economy jobs that automation can do for cheaper than any American laborer. The kinds of jobs that can't be worked by automation are typically worked by low-wage laborers. Most Americans don't fit that category. Most Americans aren't willing to take those kinds of jobs, was my contention, and that's borne out by truth. Very seldom do Americans stay in minimum wage type jobs.
All right. I just want to say that, yep, that's right. Most Americans work in an office with the air conditioning on, pushing a pencil all day. You heard it from the Liberal Sanity Project.
I would actually ask LSP, do you have a study that would support that, or a citation that would say that most Americans do as is said?
I've never made a claim that most Americans work air-conditioned jobs. What I said
No,
was
you
most
said they don't want to
Americans-
work anything but air-conditioned jobs.
I think I can make my point better than you can make my point.
Okay,
What
do you
I said
want to
was-
do you want to make it again, just
Yeah.
to re-clarify?
What I said was most Americans tend to gravitate away from low-income jobs, minimum wage type jobs, physical labor kind of jobs. Do I have anything to back that up? I can provide you something after we're done here.
If they have, yeah, if their options allow them to, absolutely they will. If their options allow them to.
Okay, just one last interjection, and then I'll let you guys get on with it. But I do recommend that we move on from the whole, well, not labor aspect, but this point of contention that you both have, because I don't think it's something that you're going to agree on. But thank you, Mash, for the $50 just because I can. Great girl.
Sure, I'll let you make the next point, sir.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of at a loss, honestly, because I'm not even here for the reason I thought I was going to be here in the beginning. So I thought I was going to be
fell for Poe's
debating
law,
something
brother.
Well, You called yourself the Liberal Sanity Project, and you brought some insane messages to me. So I
Did
figured
you
you were going to
really?
come on here
Oh,
and
that should
spout
have.
some
Can I
straight
read what I
crazy.
wrote to him?
Oh yeah, go for it. Yeah,
By all
This is
means.
fun.
it's some
To
straight
me, this
crazy
was
talk.
funny. This
This
is
is
what
why
message I sent
lefties.
to him.
This is why lefties can't troll. By the way, go ahead and read it.
Apparently, I can because you fell for it. What I wrote was, so that I want to propose is that immigration is a good thing because it erodes white patriarchy. Any privilege whites have dwindles as they become a minority, making us all a more equal people. People feel safer and better when we are multicultural. White and European societies benefit from a Eurocentric historical privilege which we must erode. This is why I favor immigration from different ethnic societies. But I do not want to take the Boers from South Africa because bringing them here will only contribute to the privilege they already have. That was the message I sent to him, which he couldn't figure out was a troll. And, you know, buddy, it would have been easier to figure out if it was the troll if you'd have just watched a little bit of my videos. I can't help that you didn't do your homework.
Dude is cringe as fuck. That's right, the Ultimate Warrior.
I think
Dude
it's pretty cringe that you fell. It's cringy you fell for it.
I don't know. I'll go back to my air-conditioned job because that's what you think all Americans gravitate towards, you know, even though
just
you
the
think
smart
they have
ones.
all
Just the
these
smart
options.
ones.
They have, yeah, just so all the ones that aren't smart, you know, fuck them, right? They can lose their jobs to the immigrants. That's your proposal,
That's exactly
right?
what I said. Yeah. So do you have anything to say?
That's what that's what you're proposing, right? You said it yourself. They don't want to work those jobs. So if they're not smart enough to work the air conditioning jobs, then fuck them, right?
I know you got me.
We'll flood their job market with immigrants so that their hourly wage can go down and their lifestyle can decrease because they're not as smart as the rest of us. That's what you're proposing.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have anything to like, I mean, your position is that we shouldn't have immigration. Do you have any reason why you say that?
Well, I don't know. I just asked you something and you completely ignored it, but
you actually strawman me. But do you have any reason? You're here to argue the con, right? You're not just a reactionary. Do you have any reason
to
propose?
God, seriously. So you're just going to go around?
Yeah, I actually want to talk about issues. Do you have anything to say?
I guess we're done here then. Fuck. I mean, you're just going to fucking dance around with this, flood the market.
I provided an argument. It's good for the economy. You disagree. Do you have any other reasons why we shouldn't accept immigrants?
I already told you. I guess, yeah, like we both said. On to your next topic, sir.
I'm opening the door to you. What is your contention?
I already told you one. Do you want me to go on? So that we can have all these immigrants vote Democrat. You want me to go on to that one?
Oh God, no.
I mean, so that the Democratic Party can import a voting group so that they can ensure wins.
Okay.
I mean, do we want to go there?
So you're opposing immigration because you don't want Democrats to get elected?
Well, no, I don't want progressive stuff like homosexuality and transgenders to be more rampant, and I don't want to go further down the rabbit hole of depravity and have fucking pedophilia legal in another 10 years. No, I don't.
Who do you think we're going to get from other countries that's going to make this thing an issue?
Oh, I think Democrats will get their voters if they import a bunch of fucking immigrants. I think that'll happen, absolutely. If you want to go look at their voting patterns, then be my guest. I think know I'm already correct on that one. Okay,
yeah, you are. So I'm not interested in debating your feelings. I want to talk facts. And here's a fact.
Well, those weren't facts. You said yourself that their voting pattern is what I said it is. So
sure, it is a fact. It's just a fact that hurts your feelings.
It's a fact, but since it's a fact that you don't like, it hurts my feelings, is what you're saying. And then you're using this ad hominem saying, oh, it's an ad hominem, but then you're doing the same thing to me here.
Okay, so immigration is correlated with a lower rate in crime. Do you disagree with this contention?
Immigration what? Lowers the correlation of crime?
Yes.
You think less crime is going to happen if we bring in more immigrants?
Yes.
What makes you think that? What study do you have that says that, sir?
Hang on. I'll send it to you.
Well, why don't you read
it? Weebo can attest to this. Okay. Quote, immigrants are less likely to commit serious crimes or be behind bars than native born. And high rates of immigration are associated with lower rates of violent crime and property crime. This from the American Immigration Council. You can get with Weebo Jones for sources afterwards.
It's true. He gave me a whole list of his sources and points. So,
and this comes with further caveats. It says
Okay,
right after this,
when they're comparing the crime rates between immigrants and Americans, they are, of course, factoring in the African American crime rate in with the overall American crime rate, are they not?
I'm sure they are. It says immigrants. I would assume it means all immigrants.
Well, African Americans really put a ding on our crime rate here in America.
Except for the immigrant ones, apparently.
Well, 13% of the nation committing 52% of the murder really hurts your overall stats.
Do you really think 13% of the nation are immigrants?
No, I'm talking about the American crime rate compared to immigrants' crime rates.
Well, yeah, I was just going to clarify that the 13% of people in the country that are black are not entirely all immigrants.
So when we're making a comparison between America's crime rate and immigrants' crime rate, what I'm saying is blacks count, the African Americans, they count as part of the American crime rate.
I put the study in the side of the group chat if you would like to look at it, Yeti, just to kind of double check with what it is that he's saying.
Oh, I understand that he's saying the immigrants, on average, as a group, commit less crime than Americans. I understand what he's saying. I'm just saying that when you say all Americans, that you have to factor in that African Americans are considered part of all of Americans.
Conclude African Americans. They are Americans. This is an argument against immigration, not the formation of ethno-states. Did you misunderstand that?
No, I'm not misunderstanding anything. When you're making a comparison, I'm just saying that, we have a group of Americans that do highly contribute to crime, and that throws off the stat for American crime overall.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
Race is no better a predictor of crime than your weight is. Crime is correlated strongly with population density and socioeconomic status. And if you control for these things, the crime rates across the races are typically comparable. People are simply byproducts of their environment. And if you change the environment most minorities are subjected to, you will impact the crime rates. This is what most sociologists would tell you.
Do you know how many white women are raped by black men every year in America?
I don't know, but that has nothing to do with immigration and crime.
No, you just made a quote about crime and race. So I'm just going to...
Because you brought up race. It has nothing to do with race.
When it comes to crime and race here now.
Gentlemen, the issue is immigration and crime, not immigration and race. I would ask you that you kind of refrain yourselves from bringing in the issue of race, specifically when referring to immigration. If you want to talk about perhaps immigration within Europe with regards to religious ideologies, that would be a little bit more relevant, but race.
Okay, I can say something about Europe then real quick. Sure. I mean, is the immigration model in Europe with the crime the model you'd like here in America?
No, but they have different circumstances.
I mean, you see that could be used as essentially foresight, you could say. I mean, like, we can look at what's happening in Europe and say, there's a good possibility that it'll happen here in America if we follow the same things that they've done.
Okay. What
I mean, that's fair to say, isn't it? It's a possibility, is it not?
I don't know what you're talking about. What will be fair to say?
That the problems they have in Europe because of immigration.
What problems?
Allowed. With the
be
crime.
Very specific here. What problems? Okay.
Crime.
Immigration crime. Okay. Yeah. And how much
Sweden and all the rape?
How much has crime gone up because of immigrants in Europe?
I don't know the stat off the top of my head.
Well, why didn't you prepare?
Because this isn't the topic I came to debate about.
Okay. I think proclaiming Islam to be the great threat to the West is easy and cheap, and anybody can do it. The odds of falling victim to an immigrant terrorist attack in the United States are 1 in 3.6 million. And if you want to talk about political violence in the United States as a result of immigration, it was not a Somali refugee who stabbed 2 people on a Portland train last year. It was an alt-righter named Jeremy Christian.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the Council of Economic or Islamic Relations that shut up a Sikh temple in Oak Creek, Wisconsin. It was a white supremacist named Wade Michael Page, who belonged to the Hammer Twins.
And San Bernardino wasn't one of those people either. So, I mean, what's your point here?
Those people in echo quotes. My point was what I said earlier. The odds of falling victim to an immigrant terrorist attack in the United States are 1 in 3.6 million.
Right. Just like the odds of a mass shooting. Extremely low, but yet they make the argument.
You are the king of non sequiturs, sir.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah. Immigrants commit less crimes than Americans. We've already established that. You keep beating it into the ground, but we've established that already.
Just one thing, not one thing, actually two things. LSP, initially the question I posed was with regards to European immigration crimes, and you kind of brought up the likeliness of being involved in a terrorist attack in the U.S. is kind of not disingenuous, but it is a different area with different issues and different immigration patterns. The second thing that I wanted to bring up was, Yeti, you have been making a non sequitur, so can we please refrain from that? Thank you.
Okay, so I'll address what you said. I don't want to make comparisons between the European system of immigration and the American system of immigration because we face completely different circumstances. We don't share land border with countries that are already at war, for one. So it's a little bit harder for refugees from Syria to make their way to the United States because we have a wall that is called the Atlantic Ocean. So we face a different set of circumstances, and we're not really subject to the same harms they might be experiencing.
Okay, here, let's ask this then. What about the illegal immigrants coming in from Mexico? What's your opinion on them?
What about them?
I'm asking you, about the illegal immigrants coming in from Mexico that come across the border, like the caravan, for instance. They got all the news publicity about the caravan. Do you think they should just come in and get the welfare and get the free ride, or what?
No, I don't think I would say that. I'm not an advocate of illegal immigration.
So they all have to follow the correct legal procedures to get in?
Yes.
Every last one of them?
Yes, every immigrant should follow the legal procedures to get into this country.
Do you propose changing those standards?
Yes.
Now, what do you propose changing those standards to in order for them to be legal citizens?
How much do you know about the standards?
I'm just asking you, what do you think the standard should be?
So there's a waiting time that already exists for the visa application process that can take several years, and the process itself is very lengthy and takes several $1,000s and requires hiring an attorney to get through. I don't think a massive bureaucracy should be required to become a citizen in this country. After all, we already have birthright citizenship. I think it should be easier and streamlined, like any other bureaucracy.
So if hiring a lawyer and paying for paperwork and waiting time essentially would prove that they would be able to financially support themselves, I would say. If they went through all the procedures that are here now and had to pay, for a lawyer and whatever paperwork they have to file, they'd have to pay for that. And like you said, wait however many years and be in their home country and, paying for their own existence in their home country. I think that would prove that they can do it here in America as well.
Okay.
Now, if you change that to some shorter time, like what are you proposing for the shorter time wait to be? How long do you want them to wait?
I think 2 to 3 years should be a max. I think anything beyond 5 is a little ridiculous. There's supposedly some waiting lists go up to 10 years. It is notoriously difficult to become a citizen in this country.
Okay, so we seem to have a lull. I just want to bring up a question, or not question, but a statement that Michael Hatfield put in the chat, and that was, it's not that they commit less crime, it's that they just don't get caught. The immigration communities are very closed off to outsiders and are afraid of police and rarely report crimes committed against them. So, LSP, could this statement, if it were true, have an impact on the crime rates within immigrant communities and overall in terms of the crime rates and statistics that we have available to us today?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part. What was the question?
Can the truth of this statement, whether or not it is what we do know about immigrant communities, that they are rather closed off to outsiders and afraid of police because of deportation issues, could this be a contributing factor to the statistics as we know them to be today with regards to immigrants?
Which statistics in particular? That's what I'm not clear on.
The ones that you brought up when you cited. I don't have them open in front of me. I did initially, but
talking about like waiting time to get here.
I don't know. I think that's kind of a crap statement, honestly, Weebo. I mean, you could use that statement and put it in other categories too. Like if you wanted to say the black community's crime isn't reported as much because snitches get stitches. I mean, that's essentially the statement you made, except you implied it towards immigrants.
well, see, the stipulation is that essentially, would that not make the crime statistics seem deflated as opposed to what they truly are if they're not being reported?
Oh, if you want to
Sure.
have an accurate representation of crime statistics, you should be embracing sanctuary city policies because that's exactly what they're designed to address.
Well, I wouldn't say crime statistics are inaccurate, but as far as your question goes, and crimes not being reported because people don't want to have interaction with law enforcement, I'd say you're correct. Yeah, there's crimes that don't go reported. Absolutely.
So then, LSP, you're essentially affirming that this would be a factor that would deflate the statistics, and then you're proposing that sanctuary cities would work to lessen this occurrence in statistics?
I am affirming that it might be a factor, and that if it were, sanctuary cities might address that. But I'm not strictly sure that it is a factor. Like, I don't want to give you an answer on something I don't actually know the answer to.
Okay, fair. I was just wondering if that was a speculation that you were open to or whatnot. And then I have a few other questions from the audience. So again, just to kind of iterate for everybody, there was a question posed. I can't remember who it was from, whether this was for illegal immigration or legal immigration. If you guys want to clarify your positions on either of those again, because we are at just over the halfway mark, and some people are joining for the first time, so we can kind of sort that out. There was a bit of confusion in the chat.
I don't know what I'd clarify. I've already stated I'm against. You really don't know anybody for it.
Well, no, I mean, I know that there are just people that have, like, what is the debate about? Which sides are you on? There are people just joining, so they're a little bit confused.
Sure. So my contention is that
state your position.
My contention is that immigration is a net positive for this country because it brings in, so it grows the supply of labor, so it helps the economy. It gives it also, we get all of these different benefits from a looser immigration policy.
Yeti, do you have a clarification that you'd like to make?
Well, yeah, I'm not for bringing in as many immigrants as I think Liberal Sanity Project is. I really don't want to change it too much as far as bringing in immigrants. I know that immigrants are going to come. I mean, they're not going to change the laws as far as allowing immigrants in, but I think a vetting process is absolutely required. And
we already have that.
I don't think they should change it to accommodate the people just so that they can get in quicker.
Sure. So let me clarify my position then, because I think you've misunderstood it, and I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say that, because I talk fast. I'm not an advocate of making it easier in the sense that we don't do a background check on who you are when you come here. I'm an advocate of allowing more immigrants to come here because it helps. That's not to say we change the policy, just that we don't have any kind of a quota system. That more immigrants tends to do better for us. It's simply that. I'm not an advocate of letting people in without background checks.
Right. And you made the position about the crime rate and bringing down the wage for anything short of an office job. And yeah, I already made my argument against that most people don't work office jobs, and they would be having their wage lowered by bringing in these immigrants.
Sure. They'd have the cost of goods lowered too, but we can move on because I don't think we're ever going to agree on that. So can I ask you about South Africa? Because, I mean, that's what kicked this off, really.
Well, you said you didn't want to bring these people over here that are
Well, I
having.
was joking. I actually have no problem bringing those people over here, but I want to ask you why you want to bring them over here, because every argument you can make against immigration could be made for South Africans too, right? They don't share our culture. They want to assimilate. It'll cost us money. It'll increase crime. All those arguments can be applied to South Africans.
Well, do you think these are people that aren't going to be able to assimilate? Is that what you're saying? Like they're not going to be able to speak the language?
No, that's not my position at all. That's
Well,
your position when
they
it
can
comes to every other
assimilate.
immigrant.
No,
Okay, well,
the South Africans are going to be able to assimilate. They're not going to come
well
over here and have to take English classes for 3 years just to start with.
okay. Okay. Do you think South Africans share our culture?
I would say they're Europeans, so for the most part, there's going to be
No, they're
differences.
South
They live in a
African.
different. Well, they're of European descent
So are most Americans, but do you think most Americans share European culture?
to a
Do you,
degree.
do you think your culture is the same as the culture of France?
Well, of course not.
So, I mean, that's why I'm asking. Why does this standard not apply to South Africans too?
Well, are you asking me what is white? I mean, where are you going with this essentially?
I'm asking you why you're an advocate of taking immigrants from South Africa, but not anywhere else.
And like I said, they're suffering and they can assimilate. Is there any
So,
more reason to argue for that? I mean,
no,
if
there's
you're going to
not.
have people
But
that are
I'm
suffering
glad
that
you.
can't assimilate, then that's what the argument you're going to make. I mean, how many people
No, no,
are actually
I
suffering
wouldn't.
here?
So let me tell you, I wouldn't make that argument. I'm actually
All right.
100% in agreement with you, and I'm happy you set that as a standard. People who are suffering and can assimilate should be absorbed into our country. I absolutely agree with you. I would say most Syrian refugees could probably fit that criteria as well. But you're not an advocate of taking Syrian refugees, are you?
Well, are you going to say most Mexicans can meet that criteria as well?
Sure, I'm Mexican. I'm assimilated.
Most Guatemalans, Honduras, they can all assimilate, right?
Sure, that's what America was built on. It was built on all these different people coming to this one location and assimilating to a common people, a common unified country, a
So,
melting pot. It's
so that American can look like Mexico in 10, 20 years.
What do you mean look like Mexico?
Well, when more people come in from different cultures, it's going to start changing what America is eventually, is it not? When the natural
Sure,
when the
but
people who are
what do you mean?
Americans now become the minority, what is America going to look like?
What do you mean? Who are Americans now become the minority? Can you be specific about that?
Well, when you're talking about bringing immigrants in, I mean, when is enough? When is there enough immigrants here?
I don't think there's ever such thing as enough, but you haven't answered my question. What do you mean by Americans becoming a minority?
Well, once you've brought in so many immigrants, there's the people who have been here are going to be the minority.
Do you think we're going to bring in more than 325 million immigrants?
Well, I asked you, when is enough enough? I mean, how many do you need to bring in?
I
And you
would
just
say
said
when
there
we
is
bring
none.
in more than I would say when we bring in more than 325 million immigrants and such, we have such a situation that we have more immigrants than we have citizens, we probably have too much. But if that's your bar, that's your bar.
Oh, I was asking you what your bar was.
I'm perfectly fine with immigrants coming into this country. I'm not worried about becoming a minority. I'm already a minority. I'm not mistreated, so I don't know what you're worried about.
Well, like I said, I don't want to have my children working for next to nothing because they weren't fortunate enough to get a cushy office job.
Okay. I hope your children don't have to work for next to nothing either.
The separation between the classes becomes even greater because you flooded the citizens full of people who aren't capable of competing with the upper class. So the middle class becomes more lower class.
I'm not quite sure it would work like that, but yeah, I see your point.
So the cost of goods really wouldn't go down.
It would. If you lower the cost of labor, the cost of goods go down.
The only way the cost of goods is
Basic
going to go
economics.
down is if there's more goods to be sold, which means they have
Right.
to bring in more labor. How much do you think they can manufacture? I mean, is this just an endless manufacture ferry that just brings all the goods nonstop?
We don't
and
tend to
can
work
just,
manufacturing jobs anyway, but we're revisiting old ground. We've
produce?
already touched on this.
I mean, how big are the farms?
I don't know. How big are farms?
Are they going to be able to feed everybody?
I don't see why
when the
not. We are a
population
fat country.
quadruples.
We're a very fat country. Do you think we're going to be starving to death if we bring in immigrants?
I mean, we're just going to, the resource fairy is just going to keep blessing America so that we can have more and more people here.
You were calling me insane earlier, and your argument is we can't bring in immigrants or we'll be hungry.
No, you're saying the resource fairy is here forever, and no matter how many people are here, it's all good.
Yeah, it's a market economy. You reproduce what you grow. We can feed people. It's not an issue. We're not a starving country, and we've been a nation of immigrants since our founding. So it ain't like we're getting skinnier, brother.
And I'm saying the separation between the classes will be greater when you bring in more people that aren't going to be in the middle class. They're going to be more lower class. It's going to drag down the middle class.
Okay. So raise taxes on the upper class. There, you equalize it.
And the people who vote for that are the upper class. So you think they're going to tax themselves?
I think the upper class are a minority. I mean, if you want to lower income inequality, you do it by bringing in more Democrats.
Bring in more Democrats. That's the plan, isn't it?
No, that's what you said earlier, brother.
Right.
Do you really think that's what I think? Do you really think I'm a proponent of immigration because I want more Democrats in this country?
No, I just said that's one thing that'll happen as a result of it.
Okay. I wouldn't worry about that. But I mean, Republicans control every house of Congress right now. And we've been, like I said, we've been a nation of immigrants since our founding. I think if it were as bad as you say it would, we'd be nothing but Democrat.
A nation of immigrants. The immigrants that founded this nation are a lot different than the ones coming in right now.
Oh, are they? In what way?
You can agree on that, right?
Sure, because they were immigrants from 200 years ago.
Okay, so since there's a lull, I would like to address Character Arctor's live question from the chat. What goods get cheaper? Is there any reason to believe medical care will get cheaper? How about insurance? Will cars get cheaper? And then you followed up with how about gas with respect to immigration influx into the country and the division of resources that would occur because of that.
Who's that directed to?
Either. No one ever gives me clarification for any questions, so just assume, I guess.
So I would assume it's to you
because
it's talking about cost of goods going down. So that sounds like it's directed at you.
It depends on whatever field those immigrants are working. What sector of the economy? But I really couldn't tell you. All I'm doing is citing what experts have said. I don't know enough about immigration to be an expert myself. I'm sorry, economics to be an expert myself. So I repeat the words of smarter men than I.
Okay. We have 12 minutes left, gentlemen. So, chat, if you have any serious questions you want to ask either of the contenders, that'll be great. I will. Oh, someone wants to call in Ice Wolf. Is that okay with you guys? You have any qualms
Kind of
about
between
that?
me and him. I'd rather keep it between us.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Oh, I have no problem, but yeah, if liberal doesn't want to bring somebody in, then
that's totally fine.
I can respect that, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
I appreciate that.
No problem. So if the chat has any questions, feel free to ask them. I will ask them of the.
Sorry, Wolf, I
tried. What prices is a key question, Director Arctor Live, with respect to his initial question on what gets cheaper, I believe it was. He also said the upper class.
Whatever goods an immigrant is working on. I couldn't tell you specifically. It depends on the field that they're working in.
Yeah, that pretty much just sounds like the same question worded differently, more or less.
Okay. Just I'm reading what I have been given. I guess Ice Wolf wants. He brought this up a few times actually. Can't have a first world nation with a third world population. Does that mean anything to either of you?
I bet it means something to him.
Okay.
Well,
I would ask you to clarify, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if he said earlier that if we import immigrants from all of these third world countries, we'll begin to look like those third world countries. I asked for clarification on that, and I don't recall getting a specific answer.
Well, they're not going to assimilate as in the way that you are trying to propose. I mean, if you're
Assimilate to
flooding,
what?
assimilate to what? These cushy office jobs for starters. They're not all going to be these ritzy pencil pushers that you're proposing. They're going to be working in the fields, just like you said.
Okay.
Right.
And why is that bad?
And why is that bad? How many of them do you think they're all working in the fields? How many field jobs are there? There's just infinite fields to supply all these.
I have to ask: do you think assimilate means work cushy office jobs?
No, that's what you were saying. Americans don't want to work anything but a cushy office job. They won't work it.
I'm asking you, what do you mean by assimilate? Assimilate to what?
They're not all going to work jobs, okay? I'm not trying to pay for people to live on my dime.
Of course not.
Of course
to be frank, I don't think any amount of data I give you on this. You have called minorities baboons, and you've said that they are infestations who drive crime up and make things worse. All data I can provide you will suggest that they're not an infestation.
No, I agreed with your statement. Yeah, you said a statement about immigrants in general. You didn't specify which group of immigrants. You said immigrants as a group.
Right. We're talking about immigration
less
in general.
Crime than Americans. And when you spoke of crime in comparison to America, and I agreed with you on that statement, but I specified that African Americans are counted as Americans, and our crime rate is high because
they are
population. I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying that the American crime rate is high because
I know, but it sounds like a weird non sequitur. Blacks suffer from disparate poverty in this country because they've been subjected to institutional oppressions time and time again. They were subjected to generations of slavery, and generations after that, they had to deal with Jim Crow. Even today, they are targets of discrimination in policing and then hiring practice and then voting.
So affirmative action does not exist, right? They don't have employers
that is exactly what I said.
Quotas requiring them to hire a certain amount of minorities.
No, because quotas are unconstitutional.
That doesn't
look that up, though.
Affirmative action doesn't exist, is what
affirmative action exists. Affirmative action exists. Quotas are unconstitutional. But what I said was blacks suffer from disparate poverty because they have been subjected to slavery and Jim Crow, and they are subject to discrimination today on an institutional level. That was what I said.
Right, which is a complete liberal argument, right?
It's a completely true argument.
Victimhood, right?
Do you think they're not victims to
no, I don't think they're. No, I do not. I do not.
So if I told you that New York had a policy called stop and frisk once upon a time, which
I'm aware
involved precisely what it sounds like. And why was are you aware why that policy was thrown out by the courts?
And I asked you a question earlier about something along these lines.
No. Answer this question. Again, let me ask, why was that policy thrown out by courts?
Because some liberal lawyer got it thrown out of the courts.
Why? Why? Do you know why?
They deemed it racist. That's why.
Now, why would they deem it racist?
Because that's the way our society's set.
To generation, because they're locked into generational poverty, and they're locked that way because businesses don't hire them. People with names like Jamal seldom get phone calls for applications they submit same credentials as somebody named Steven. Okay,
and they have the same resumes, right? They have the exact same qualifications, the exact same skills, the exact same appearance during their interview.
Names get more phone calls back. So there's discrimination practices, right?
But you're making a statement without all the facts.
That would be discrimination.
You're making a comparison that everybody's exactly equal. If Jamal doesn't have the same qualifications as Jim, then Jamal's not going to get the job. No, but you're not factoring in the entire scenario. You're trying to say this study says this, so this study is right, and anything that contradicts this study is false. And I'm going to stand by this study no matter what. No matter what.
The study is called "Are Emily and Greg more employable than and Jamal?" And
who African Americans. Who wrote that study?
Was it some liberal professors?
I'm just asking you who wrote the study that you're citing. Who wrote it?
Hang on.
You're cutting out.
Yeah, LSP, you are cutting out pretty bad. You want to reload and then come back in? Or reduce your bandwidth, I guess.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Hello?
Wait, no, hang on. Now you're cutting out again. Okay, refresh the stream and then come back in.
Yeah, I'm refreshing. Give me a second.
Yeah, Quill, if you're quick to hire Jamal over Cletus, that might make you racist. According to a lot of people, that would possibly make you racist. According to a lot of people, that'd make you a great person.
Hello?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
It depends on who you're asking.
I think so.
Okay.
Just keep talking, and then if you cut out, I'll tell you
Okay,
again.
so your question was who wrote the study I was referring to. And the study is, are Emily and Greg more employable than Lakeisha and Jamal? The study was written by Marion Bertrand for the American Economic Review, published by the American Economic Association.
Okay.
And what the study finds is that blacks, even if they have the exact same credentials as whites, don't get phone calls back for applications they submit for jobs.
And where did they get their information from? I mean, it says that, but where's the information coming from?
You're free to read it. What they did was submit several applications into several businesses without regard. I'm sending you the thing on side chat. They submitted several applications to several businesses without regard to what those positions were or anything like that. They just made the same resumes. All they changed was the names, and the black names seldom got phone calls back from employers.
So you're citing one study, right? Like, we don't know
all
how...
I'm doing is citing studies, and all you're doing is disagreeing.
Right, you're right. You're citing these studies, but then you can't tell any of us what they did. You just said they submitted a couple.
I literally just did.
You did. Yeah, they submitted a couple applications, is what you said. Right.
Yes, and all they did was swap out the white names for the black names. And
where
the
were
white
these
names
applications submitted at?
Feel free to read it yourself and find out. I'm not going to hold your hand through this. I can't keep providing you sources and you keep ducking out every time it disagrees with your worldview.
Well, that's what you've been doing. Let me ask you about the crime thing with the blacks now, since you think they're over-policed.
Sure.
How many white women are raped by black men every year here in America on average? Do you know?
I don't know. How many?
20,000 approximately.
Okay. And
you know how many black women are raped by white men on average here in America?
How many?
Essentially zero.
Essentially zero white women are raped by white men?
No, black women are raped. Black women are raped by white men.
I need a source on that. Can I get a source on that? No. I want you to provide me a source for a change.
Okay, go to the FBI UCR.
Okay, what am I?
Go to the FBI.
Okay, this is easy.
I've read it several times.
Then you can find it and send it to me.
Okay, I'll send it to you. I'm not going to do it this very second. Jesus.
So, gentlemen, we have 3 minutes remaining, and I know that Yeti said he had to go after an hour. I would just... there's one thing that I'd like to point out, that study that you cited, LSP, the one, I think it was from 2003 or 2004,
sure,
about the resumes. They actually did a second study in 2016 called Race and Gender May Not Affect Employer Interest in Resumes at the University of Missouri, Columbia. If you want, I can send you that link to that so you can do some further reading. But
yes, I'd love that.
They did a repeat study several years later, and I feel like it's kind of just sheds a little bit more light on the subject than the previous study. I'd love to read it. Because the one that you cited is a little bit outdated.
Sure, send it to me. I'd love to read it.
Okay, I send it to you in the side group chat. And with that, we have 2 minutes left. So I have a few questions from the chat that I want to just kind of crank out. Well, they're both directed at LSP. So LSP, from Quill, you say you're an assimilated Mexican. Are you an immigrant, or were you born and or raised in the USA? Just to clarify for the chat.
I was born and raised in the United States from immigrant parents.
Okay. And a question from MASH to ask you about immigrants that refuse to adapt. It's kind of an open-ended one, and it probably takes a little bit more than 60 seconds to answer. But if you'd like to give like a 10-word response.
Question?
Just to ask you about immigrants that refuse to adapt.
They all adapt, boy. Didn't you know?
Yeah, that's truth.
They all adapt. That's right. You tell them.
Okay.
Go ahead.
They all adapt, boy. Didn't you know? I'm sorry, you said goy. Gotta get them Jewish memes in, boys. I'm sorry, goys.
Okay. So we have 1 minute left, and it doesn't seem like we're going to get much more substance out of this in the next 60 seconds. So I guess I'll just close out. LSP, Yeti, thank you for joining me tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for being somewhat civil. Not completely, but somewhat. And
Sure.
thank you for both of your thoughts. I'm sure you gave the audience much to think about and much to comprehend. Chat, thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions. And thank you for your engagement. I didn't get to all of your questions and all of your points, but I tried to kind of discriminate between repeat questions, things that were just open-ended, and things that weren't necessarily the most relevant. Anyway, thank you for coming.
Boy,
We'll do...
Vinny, shut it down.
Oh my God. You're fine. Thank you for coming out. I hope you had fun. Peace.
I hit it a little too early.